I had a feeling that something was wrong with my wife Caroline. Not much, but enough for a man who had known her for 12 years, of which he had been married to her for 10. Caroline and I have an ordinary Scandinavian family with 2 children, a 7-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl. We live in our own house near the county seat, and we both work full-time. Caroline works at City Hall, and I work for a small consulting company. My wife and I met at an evening class on the advanced use of Microsoft Excel and got married 2 years later. Of course, like most others, there have been ups and downs in our marriage, but there have never been any serious problems, at least in my opinion. The first signs appeared about a month after our 10th anniversary. It was her slight decrease in interest in making love. Not that she refused me, but she started offering quick caresses instead of making love, much more often than before. The next minor visible sign was an increase in her clothing expenses. Another sign was that she was picking on me more and more for no real reason. Caroline always spent at least 2 evenings a week with her friends on various innocent activities such as aerobics, evening classes, bowling, and badminton, but only a couple of late nights a year with girls in some bar or restaurant when someone from the gang wanted to celebrate something. I did everything I could, but I couldn't see any new or strange pattern in her evenings out. My coworker Eric noticed that I was having problems with my marriage and told me that it was better to find out the truth than to walk around and feel as bad as I did. I told him that a private investigator could probably find out the truth, but I couldn't hire a private investigator for 2 very simple reasons. First, there was no such thing, at least not in the phone book, neither in our city nor in the whole district. Secondly, even if there was, I didn't have the money to keep an eye on Caroline for a long time. But I promised to do my best to put an end to the problems between Caroline and me. The last straw that broke the poor camel's back happened on the first Saturday night after Eric suggested that I do something. Caroline and I were invited to a pleasant dinner hosted by friends near the city, where she behaved like a loving wife all evening. She even did it all the way home in a taxi that we shared with another couple. Of course, I had the hope of continuing a pleasant evening by making love to her. But as soon as the babysitter left our house, Caroline stopped acting so nice and cut me off with words. "Forget it if you were stupid enough to expect anything from me tonight." I gave up trying and answered with a beaming smile. What could I expect from an icy, frigid bitch? Nothing else was said that evening, but it took me several hours before I fell asleep. I used this time to come up with a simple plan. The only thing I had to do was sign up for an online anonymity service so that I could send emails without being tracked. After testing the mail service on Sunday morning, on Monday I sent Caroline the following email to her work. "Dear Mrs. Ekman, to my great disappointment, I have evidence of your infidelity, which makes me feel sorry for your husband and envy your lover for his pleasure with such a magnificent woman like you. Of course, I am strongly tempted to share my information with your husband. But I have a better offer because I want and need to have a good time with a gorgeous woman sponsored by you during my next business trip. Therefore, I expect that you will be sitting alone at the Plaza Cafe today, Monday, at 14:30 to 15:00 with 600 euros in an envelope at the table. My friend will greet you with the words, 'Aren't you Lars's sister?' You have to answer, 'No, I'm his wife.' After that, you must give him the envelope. Thank you for your very kind cooperation. Your true friend." 600 euros is a very small amount that cannot be regarded as serious blackmail if she goes to the police, and they are unlikely to consider this as some kind of priority case to save the reputation of a cheating wife. On the other hand, it was insignificant enough for Caroline to get it at an ATM without any problems. Both euros and our own crowns are available at ATMs outside our bank's main office. That Monday, I suggested Eric take a break for a 3-hour coffee at the Plaza Cafe. We entered a few minutes before 3, and to my feigned surprise, I saw Caroline sitting alone at a table, and then, to my real surprise, I saw Martin Jensen sitting alone a few tables away from her. That bastard Martin also works at City Hall, and he's married to one of Caroline's best friends. We met him and his wife for dinner last Saturday, but I didn't notice anything special between him and Caroline. Staring at Caroline and Martin, I screamed loudly, "What the hell is going on here? Why are you two here instead of working? Why don't you sit at the same table?" Martin ran away without saying a word to me, and Caroline followed him out of the cafe in silence. Eric was even more confused than I was when I told him that we had probably managed to catch Caroline with her lover. After that, I called Martin's wife, Cecilia, and asked her if she had any ideas why my wife and her husband took the afternoon off and sat at different tables in the cafe. Then I told her that I suspected Caroline was having an affair, and now Martin should be the main suspect unless I get a very good explanation of what they were involved in. She promised to have a serious talk with Martin and call me when she finds out something. This Martin was a very handsome man, usually expensively dressed, polite, well-mannered, and a real party lover. Of course, those of us who knew him from childhood had a completely different opinion about him. At home, I logged into our bank account, where it was visible that 600 euros had been withdrawn and put back during the day. This information was enough for me at the moment, so I filled out the divorce forms I took from the courthouse during my lunch break. When Caroline came home, she was mad as a bee and attacked me. "You were acting like an idiot in the cafe. I can explain everything if you'd care to listen to me." I replied, "No, I don't want to listen, because I don't care about your explanations. Just read these divorce papers and sign them. Everything is divided 50-50, and you can't get a better deal, even with a lawyer who will cost you a fortune." It was obvious that she was really very angry and shouted at me, "These divorce papers are the only sensible thing you've been able to do in a long time." Fuming, she signed the divorce papers without reading them and screamed, "It would be a great relief to me to get a real man instead of a jerk like you." That's how my marriage ended. Caroline left the house and I didn't care where. Later, I got a call from a sobbing Cecilia, who told me that Martin had confessed to having an affair with Caroline. Now he was crying and begging her to forgive him. She said she didn't know what to do and demanded that Martin move out and live with his parents for the next 2 weeks so she would have time to think about their future. I told her that Caroline and I had already signed the divorce papers. One thing was for sure. If Caroline considered Martin her new dream man, she could forget about it. But it wasn't my place to tell her about it. After the phone call, I moved all of Caroline's clothes to the guest room, which infuriated her when she returned home. I couldn't resist telling her that I had told Cecilia about what I had seen at the Plaza Cafe. This information did not make her happier. The next day, strange things happened. When Caroline returned home after work, she surprised me by saying, "Dear Lars, I am sorry and regret everything I said yesterday in my angry mood. I was stressed out and said stupid things that I didn't mean. Can you forgive me for that? You are and always will be my true love. No more hard feelings. We are adults, and we are expected to do our best to solve our problems. Please tear up those stupid divorce papers that we signed yesterday in an angry mood, and I promise to be a much better loving wife, and I'll explain everything about yesterday." I looked her straight in the eye when I said, "The divorce papers are in court, and I already know everything about Martin and your affair. Last night, after you left, Martin confessed to cheating on Cecilia, who called and told me that your real man was a crying weakling begging for mercy, and claimed that you were a cheating cheat who seduced him. He's not too good for a real man instead of me, is he?" Caroline sobbed and asked breathlessly, "Did Cecilia tell you about Martin and me?" "Yes, and this explains why our marriage has been a loveless marriage for the last time. I suspected your deception, but I didn't find any real evidence until Martin confessed to Cecilia." Caroline had a strange expression on her face when she said, "But how did you get me to sign the divorce papers a few hours before Cecilia told you about Martin's confession?" "I had had enough last Saturday night, and for a few sleepless hours I decided that divorce was my only possible solution. The decision to divorce was made many hours before that crying freak Martin confessed to your infidelity. I'm sorry, and I'd like to undo everything I've done with Martin. Can you give me a second chance and forgive me?" "No, because I will never understand how you can prefer that bastard Martin to me and dream of him as a real man. I'll never forget how you humiliated me ever since you fell in love with him. But this pile of shit will be yours when Cecilia is done with him. You probably didn't know that all their inherited stocks, savings, expensive house and cars are Cecilia's private property. The only thing Martin owns is a hell of a lot of debt since he bankrupted his business. Now Martin will lose his expensive Rolex and BMW if these toys impressed you. If you really love this whiny bastard, you'll have to support him and his expensive habits." She replied, I made a terrible mistake, and I will never understand how I could have been so stupid as to be seduced and deceived by this slimy worm. I'd rather be alone for the rest of my life than have anything to do with him. Gossips from the mayor's office reported that Martin told Caroline to go to hell when she told him about the divorce papers she had signed and suggested that they be an official couple. This explains why, the day after signing the divorce papers, she begged me to forgive her and cancel the divorce. Martin has successfully avoided me since he saw me in the cafe. Already on the second day after his confession, the doctor sent him on sick leave due to stress and physical problems. As I expected, Cecilia filed for divorce after a 2-week break, and Martin never returned to his job at City Hall. After being on sick leave for several months, he left the city for a new job. He and Caroline never met or even spoke again. Caroline rented an apartment in a nice neighborhood, but she had to wait 3 months before she could move in. We agreed that she would stay in our spare room until then, and that neither of us would start dating until our divorce was final. Despite the cold atmosphere in the house, the agreement worked better than expected. Then, about 2 months after we filed for divorce, something very unexpected happened to Caroline. On Saturday evening, she asked me if I could promise to keep an important secret about her economic affairs. I promised, and she said, "You probably heard that someone in our city won the lottery jackpot. I'm the winner. The jackpot is equal to $3 million US. That's enough to solve all my problems. We're still married. That's why I have to ask you, do you demand half of it? Congratulations." "No, I don't demand or expect anything from you. My only suggestion is that you create funds for the children so that they can study, buy cars and apartments when they grow up, and then support them when they get married." She looked at me and said, "Are you sure you won't try to demand anything from me?" "Yes. When we lived together, only your love was enough for me. But I am sure that when Martin receives this information, he will be with you immediately, begging you to forgive him and be with you together. He'll never know, because you're the only one who got this information from me, and you promised to keep quiet. Although I have not kept my own promises to you, I am convinced that you are better than me and you are fulfilling what you promised." Nothing else was said about it, and everything went on as usual, except that Caroline was out of town the following Thursday and Friday. On Saturday, she asked me if we could have dinner together because she had something to tell me. I agreed. Our children stayed overnight with one of their friends. Dinner was great, with my favorite food and great wine. So I started expecting some attempts to buy my love, and I was curious what the value of my love was in her opinion and how much she was willing to pay for it. During a delicious dessert, she said, "I did exactly as you suggested and created funds for our children." I replied, "You are a good mother, and these funds will benefit them greatly when they grow up." Nothing more was said about this, and we continued a pleasant small talk about other everyday matters. During coffee with cognac after eating, when we were comfortably settled on the sofa in the living room, she said, "I'm sorry that I was a stupid cheap cheater who ruined our happy family by cheating and humiliating the best man I've ever known. Today I cannot understand how and why I could have succumbed to Martin's advances. I'm damn sorry about that, and I've spent a lot of sleepless nights crying about how damn stupid I've been. Of course, I know for sure that money cannot buy your love and forgiveness. However, we know that courts usually sentence the offender to pay money to his victim as compensation for the pain and humiliation caused. But since no court in this country cared about what I did to you, I handled this case myself. I acted both as a prosecutor and as a judge, who ruled that all lottery money remaining after fundraising for our children is transferred to your personal account. What I have done cannot be undone." She gave me the receipts from the bank, and I was silent for a long time before I said, "Good God, what have you done?" "I can't take your money. I'll give it back to you." She replied, "You don't have to return anything to me." The lawyers who organized it said it was impossible because there were no conditions. The money is yours and yours alone, and I cannot and do not want to regret what I did with it. I don't demand or expect anything in return. I did what I would have done before I was caught in this stupid scam. What the hell could I do? My love wasn't for sale, but Caroline wasn't trying to buy it. No conditions at all. No request for forgiveness. She only talked about compensation. She didn't even try to kiss me. Although I was in some shock, I began to realize that her love for me was real. Caroline was a smart, beautiful woman and the mother of my children. I suspected, without any doubt, that she was still in love with me. Will I ever be able to find a better woman than her? Probably not. Find at least one woman equal to her? Not even that. Will I be able to forgive her? I didn't know, but why not try it seriously? I decided to do it. I said, "Dear Caroline, we are still married and we have to talk to each other, talk about the past and talk about the future. I think talking about the future is better suited after this delicious dinner. Isn't it?" She replied, "Yes." I continued, "Divorce hurts like hell, and now it hurts even more after I realized how much you really love me and how much you regret your affair." She began to cry and sobbed. "I pray every night that one day you will forgive me and give me a second chance." I moved closer to Caroline, hugged her and said, "We're still married. Should we seriously try to stay like this?" She looked me straight in the eye and whispered, "Am I dreaming, or is it true?" "That's true, because I hope you're still my Caroline, the same as you were before Martin tainted her." I miss that Caroline like hell. She hugged me tightly and whispered, "You will never regret it." There was only one way this evening could end with great intense lovemaking. During that night, I did everything I could to give her the best lovemaking she had ever had, and she did the same to me. It was like a wedding night again, and for a long time after that night we behaved like newlyweds. We missed the divorce. Everything was fine in our relationship, and now we are a happy family again. Our children demanded that Caroline and I promise that we will never try to divorce again. We barely talked about Caroline's affair with Martin. For some reason, I don't really care about any details. Although she gave me all her money, I never felt like she bought me back because she had no conditions, only a faint hope. She had put everything she had on the line, won what she wanted, and only the future would tell her if she had done the right thing. The truth is, I missed her so much that I probably would have done something myself to get her back without any money. One thing is for sure, I love Caroline, and she loves me.